It's Friday. Yesterday was the last day of school for Pretty Girl. The shy one, she had an exam Monday, so she didn't have school either. And the old man decided to sleep in. Now, of course, we're running late. I gotta get out to gotta pick the guys up and head out to the land. Still have work to do, even though the kids are off school. One of the great things is we can get pretty much as much chicken manure as we could ever use. If you look, this big huge pile here, that's all chicken manure. This whole place right here, it's all chicken manure. We're gonna load this stuff up, mix it with the seaweed, mix it with the grass, and make compost out of it. If you look right over here are big huge chicken coops. When they clean those things out, and they clean out several of them, this company has got dozens of them around here. They always bring truckloads of this stuff here, and I talked to them. We can take as much of this crap as we want. This right here is one of the key problems with factory farming. This stuff, it stinks here. It's really bad. And actually right where I'm standing, it's not so bad. Yeah, here it's not so bad, but it stinks. This stuff is terrible. Heavy ammonia smell, and it's just the result of this factory farming. They don't know what to do with this stuff. The guy told me he spread some of it on the field, but they can't spread much because of the fact that this stuff is so intense. It's not really useful. And just imagine the chicken you're eating is living in this stuff every single day. It's horrible. One truckload, and it barely put a dent in this one little pile. Unfortunately, the source for this grass isn't a clean one. This came from where they cleaned up the road, and it has a lot of garbage in it. And I told the guy when he emptied these bags to clean the garbage out, and of course he didn't. You know, one more reason I'm glad he isn't here anymore. But right in the center, right there is a maca tree. This was an old maca tree. These things do not die. If you look, we got a ton of new growth on it after they cut it. The only way I know of to really effectively kill these things is to build a hot compost pile directly on top of it. But we have to cut it down enough to get the compost pile on top of it effectively. Now we have our three ingredients. Right here is the seaweed we got yesterday. Trucks filled with chicken manure. And then on the other side we've got a bunch of grass. We're going to mix these three together. I'm going to drop the pump into the branch section over behind me, and we're going to bring water over here and make sure we have a good water source. As you can see, this tree has got a lot of growth on it. They didn't do as good a job cutting this thing as I thought when they first put this stuff here, but that's all right. All we did was empty a bunch of bags of grass on top of it. Today we're going to build a proper compost pile. We need to make this compost, and I thought I had the inverter to be able to run the pump in my truck. And apparently I had obviously taken it out of the truck for some reason. And we went to plug the pump in and we couldn't plug it in because we didn't have the inverter. So I had to run back to the house. Here's the process. We mix equal parts chicken manure, grass cuttings, and seaweed together on this pile. So just have at it, boys. Just remember, equal parts. You want as much grass, as much seaweed, and as much chicken manure together. I would very much like to have multiple compost piles. The compost is so useful in so many ways that it only makes sense to have as many piles as you can. that being said, building these piles takes a lot of work, especially with the seaweed. I mean, I could go without the seaweed. You may have to find another beach that's closer, or just go without seaweed. But we can get as much of that chicken manure as we want. I mean, you saw those piles, they're huge. I could have the guy with the backhoe and rent a dump truck and just spend a day loading it and bringing it here and dumping it. Loading it, bringing it here, dumping it over and over and over again. That's not something I'm going to do. We're going to use that chicken manure just like this. We're going to make compost out of it. And it's a really great compost. I want to build one over here in the timber section so we can have compost for the timber. I'm not sure exactly when we'll do that, but that's something I think we're going to do. The last time we did compost, we did not get enough water in it. It was a real issue. So we're going to make sure we water this better. Just added some water to this mix. Now we're back another layer of seaweed. A lot of the grass has been sitting in these bags for quite some time. So it's really semi-composted already. Some of the stuff is real dry, some of it's real wet. So each bag's going to have its own little mix. This stuff is clearly gone anaerobic. We're going to have to make sure that we mix this thoroughly enough to get rid of that. But it's the way it works. This grass has been in these bags for quite some time. When the pile is finished, we're going to take and put a carbon cap on it. What I mean is, you're taking carbon material and covering the whole pile with it. The carbon cap, what the carbon cap does is, it traps nitrogen gas that's trying to escape. Because that chicken manure right now, it's got a horrible ammonia smell. We take a carbon material and put it over the top of it. It ends up acting like a blanket, and it absorbs all that nitrogen that tries to escape. One of the things that we need to do is add an inoculant to this. Now, the best inoculant would be a dead animal. We don't have a dead animal, so what we're going to do is we're going to get some compost from the pile we did last year. Now, this is what we get. Now, we turned this twice, maybe 3 times, and we basically forgot about it. But we're going to take 1 wheelbarrow full of this and mix it in with that compost pile we're making. Because this is some really good stuff. In the tropics, you will find that ants produce more soil than worms. And if you look at this compost, it is filled with ants. And these are nasty stinging ants too. It's an issue. Again, if we had chickens, that would help. Okay, pile looks good. You cannot smell the chicken manure anymore. And we haven't even finished, really. We've got a bunch of grass to go on top. And then we're going to take and put the carbon cap right over it again. So we're going to take all those wood chips and cover this with a thin layer of wood chips. If you can smell the ammonia, you're losing nitrogen that's in this, and you cannot afford to lose the nitrogen. So you need more carbon. If you're smelling nitrogen, you need more carbon. Grass cuttings, wood chips, cardboard, newspaper will even work. All right, if we're going to use newspaper, shred it up so it'll break down better. Oddly enough, the grass, some of this grass has gone anaerobic, and the guys are saying the grass smells worse than the chicken manure did. Once we get it mixed properly, it'll go aerobic, and we'll get rid of that stench too. Plus, we're going to still put that carbon cap on. We're going to cover this whole thing in wood chips. That'll make a difference. That'll make a big difference. Now, here's the compost pile completed. We've taken all the seaweed, all the chicken manure, and a ton of grass, and mixed it all together. And this is what we've got. And don't forget, we put the carbon cap on top of it. If you look at the top, it's been totally covered in wood chips, primarily a carbon material. We will turn this next week, but I'm standing right here. I'm not smelling the chicken manure. That's a good sign. That's what we want. Trap all that nitrogen in here instead of having it release as an off gas.